Dear students, welcome to lecture 6 in unit 3 of strategic management, and as you can see the topic for this lecture is international entry modes. Now in the last lecture we had discussed about the strategies, expansion strategies, and in that we had spoken about the internationalization strategy. Now, suppose you want to take a tour to a foreign country, take a tour abroad, or you want to go for a vacation. Now, you have decided that what will I do in the vacation, how much money will I spend, what will I eat, what will I wear, everything is final. Now, you have to decide that what vehicle you are going to use, what mode of transportation you are going to use. So, you can go travel by ship, or you can travel by, some people travel by road also, they are very challenge and adventure seeking. And there are people who would, generally most of the people would go by an aircraft. So, the vehicle which you decide is the entry mode, how will you enter into that market. So, the same thing applies here also. We have discussed that how will we, what will we do when we enter the market in the internationalization strategies. But how will we enter into the market, what will be the method, what will be the mode to enter, that is international entry modes. So, we talk about these modes now. There are three strategic decisions related to international entry modes. Which mode I will select, what are the modes, we will come down to that also, but there are three important strategic decisions regarding the entry modes. The first is which international markets to enter. So, there are so many around outside our country, outside our own national boundaries, there is this whole world around us. So, we have to decide whether we have to enter all the markets or we have to enter select few markets. So, a firm contemplating internationalization has to carefully assess the expected benefits of entering a market, the costs that are liable and the risks that they are likely to face. So, this is very important. In the last class also I said that if they do not do, companies do not go for a proper environmental scanning, local environmental scanning, they may fail. So, then again I will talk about the example of Walmart. Walmart tried to enter the market of Mexico several times in a decade. It failed miserably again and again, but at the end with a strong local partner it could enter the Mexico market. So, you have to understand the risks of entering the new market, because there totally the environment will be different, which you have not you are not used to, if you have not assessed or forecasted, then it could lead to disaster. Second is the timing of entry into the international market. You can be the first few to enter, the first one to enter the international market, you can be among the first few to enter, or you can wait and watch what happens to other companies who have entered, your contemporaries which have entered into the international market, see what happens to them, their fate, and then you can decide whether you want to go to the international market or not. So, that is what we call as the timing of entry, means whether the international entry is made earlier than the international companies or later than that. And the third is scale of entry into international markets. That is, whether you want to enter with a small scale, you want to with little commitment in terms of resources, or you want a big bang entry, you want a large scale entry with significant commitments. That means what is the level of investment you want to make in the international market. This investment can be in terms of the resources, financial, physical or human resources. You have to, as a company, has to decide. So, different companies can have different thoughts about it. Now, we talk about the advantages and disadvantages of going international. Why will a firm want to go or not want to go to the international market? First is obviously your market increases, the number of customer increases as you go to the international market. Now, one of the reasons why Coke reached throughout the world, it is being almost sold in the entire world, because during World War II, Coke followed the American soldiers. So, wherever the American soldiers went, Coke followed them in order to keep them fresh and to give them the soft drink, and hence it could access new markets and it could establish its business therein. Next is obviously when you are operating within closed borders, then you have access to the human resource which is available in your country, but when you move beyond that, you have access to a huge pool of human resources. Third is obviously it generates a competitive advantage. When you have the best of resources in terms of people, in terms of R&D, in terms of technology, because you are getting the best from around the world, then in that case you generate a value which is higher than what competitors can provide to the customers, and that is why you can achieve as a company achieve a competitive advantage. Obviously, when a company is having businesses in several parts of the world, what happens as a result of that? Risk does not remain concentrated at one place, because suppose there's a downturn in economy in a country and a company is having business only in that country, then it is bound to suffer. But if it has businesses in different parts of the world and in one region there is a downswing in the economy, there are other regions which are doing well, and hence the company can offset its losses from in one place through the good times it is having in the other parts of the world. And many times going international also leads to innovation, firstly because you have access to lot of resources in all terms, as I said, R&D, technology, physical, human resources, and secondly many times the demands of the country in which you are entering are such that you have to go for innovation. In the last class we had discussed the example of Procter and Gamble, and similarly I would like to quote the example of GE. GE, you must have heard of this company, and it is into healthcare and many other areas. So, when it entered the Chinese market, it realized that the kind of ultrasound machines they were having, they were too bulky and they were too expensive to be made available in different corners of the country. So, they had to go in for R&D, they had to innovate, and as a result of that GE came up with the portable version of ultrasounds which were less in weight, they were easy to carry, and they were also very economical. So, what happens as a result of innovation? They came up with a product which not only sold in China, but it was selling then in all parts of the world, because it became a very nice thing to have in different countries. So, this is the advantages, these are the advantages of going international. Now, what are the disadvantages? Obviously, higher risk. The risk of going international is very high, because if you are not aware of the environment of the new country, their culture, traditions, values, there can be failures. And related to this is difficulty in managing cultural diversity. Because you are not aware, you may fail, and as a result of that, what is happening? Risks are increasing, because earlier you were you are confined to a particular place, you were secure there. Now what you have done, you have put in your resources to a place which you are not much aware about. So, there is a lot of risk involved. Next is bureaucratic delays. Obviously, in each country there will be their own laws, there will be their own policies of granting permissions to new businesses from other countries to enter into their market. So, in some countries it may take a lot of time, and by the time you get a permission, you have incurred so much of cost by way of lost time and money that you have already running into losses. So, bureaucratic delays. Then is higher distribution cost. Obviously, if you are selling, if a company is selling within its own borders, within a closed group, then in that case what will happen? Distribution costs will also be in control. Now if you are selling to far away distances, then in that case your distribution cost will be higher, and they will be spread also to different parts of the country, so per unit cost may also be higher. So and there are certain countries which will have their they will impose import barriers, tariffs. So trade barriers are also a disadvantage. So these are the things which a company has to keep into consideration when it is thinking of going international. Now coming to the main part, that is international entry modes. Now as I said that it means the manner or the way in which a firm would commence its international operations, the vehicle which it would like to use while moving international. Now they are of three types have been mentioned, but a fourth has been lately added also to this. We will come to that also. First we will discuss the basic three. The first is export entry modes, second is contractual entry modes, third is investment entry modes, and the fourth, as I said, is born global firms. So now there are 4 types of entry modes. So let us take them one by one. The first is export entry modes. Last class we had discussed about wine exporters from Italy and France, right. So the first and the basic step for a company to go international could be, now many companies are selling through internet, e-commerce websites, so that is also somehow they're on a very basic level, their products are getting into the international market. Similarly, another very second basic level of entry into the international market will be export entry modes. Under these modes, the firm produces in the home country and markets in the overseas market. So there is no production facility in the international market, it is only produced here and sold in many parts of the world. Now there can be 2 types of exports. First are the direct exports. Direct exports, as the very name suggests, that is the company is selling directly to the international markets, there are no middlemen involved in between, right. So the company is using its own channels to distribute or to sell its products in the international market. It refers to the sale in the foreign market by the manufacturer himself. A manufacturer does not use any middleman in the channel between the home country and overseas market. There is no channel involved. And the second is indirect exports. Now indirect exports, it refers to the transfer of the selling responsibilities to other organizations by the manufacturer. जैसा कि नाम बता रहा है, indirect exports क्या होंगे, जहाँ पर कि कंपनी डायरेक्ट नहीं पहुँचा रही है, there is a middleman in between, right. So to other organization by the, it refers to the transfer of the selling responsibility to other organization by the manufacturer. The manufacturer utilizes the services of various types of independent marketing middlemen, right. So there are these agents who move goods and services from one country, from one manufacturer to another country. So these companies which go for indirect exports will make use of such kind of middlemen. Now the second entry mode is the contractual entry mode. Now as the very name suggests, there is a contract between 2 parties, and it is a legal contract, it is binding on both the parties. Now very important thing is, these modes are non-equity associations. There is no equity involved. Both of them do not put money into a particular project, right. One between an international company and a company or any other legal entity in the overseas market. So it is a non-equity association. There is a contract, but as such They do not come together to pool resources, to buy shares and pool in their shares into a particular company and then they create this company. It is nothing of that sort. It is just an agreement between two parties that they can sell or market or distribute the other's product. Now, how does this happen? There are two modes or there are two ways of doing it. The first is licensing. Now, what is license? License is basically a permission. If you get a license, driving license, it is basically a permission that you can drive on the road without any restriction. You know how to ride and nobody is going to stop you if you have a proper license. Now, it allows foreign firms either exclusively or non-exclusively. Now, what does that mean? We will come to that. To manufacture a proprietor's product for a fixed term in a specific market. Fixed term, specific market. It creates a legal vehicle for taking a product or service and providing that product or service in another country. Now, exclusively or non-exclusively, that means for example, there is a company A which wants to sell its product or it wants to issue a license to some company in India, right. So, it issues a license. Now, this can be an exclusive permission or non-exclusive permission. Exclusive means it can give this permission to only this company, that only this company will manufacture its products in India, or it can be non-exclusive, that it can give this license to several companies together who can manufacture its products. Then it is for a fixed term, again it will be revised and it is in a specific market. So, if it is for India, license is for India, then it will only be meant for India. Then this company in India cannot sell or it cannot manufacture the product in China. It has to manufacture in India only. So, licensing, very common examples are Coke and Pepsi. What do these companies do? They issue license and they give permission to local manufacturers to produce their soft drinks. So, wherever if you go to a Pepsi plant or a Coke plant in India, they call it the bottling plant, right, because that is the manufacturer who has been given permission by Pepsi or by Coke to manufacture their products. So, and it is a fixed time arrangement. After that, if the contract is reviewed, revised, then the manufacturer will continue. Otherwise, if the company cancels the license, he can no longer produce the products under that brand name. Second is franchising. Franchising is on a higher level than licensing. Now, it is a system in which business owners are known as franchisees, who get the permission, right, pay fee. They pay fee and royalties to a parent company which is known as the franchisor in return for the right to become identified with its trademark, to sell its products or services and often to use its business format. So, as I said, franchising is a bigger umbrella than licensing. Many times licensing would come in franchising. So, when a company will not only allow another company to manufacture its product, but also to use its trademarks, to use its branding, to copy the entire business format, then it will be a case of franchising. Now, companies like McDonald's, Domino's, Pizza Hut, they go for international entry by way of franchising. They will come into an agreement with some party, some local party in that country, and they will give them permission to operate or to run business on their behalf. And what will happen? When this company will get a franchisee of let us say McDonald, then this company will pay McDonald a particular fees, franchisee fees initially, and for the every month sales also there is a fixed amount which will be given to McDonald's. Now, franchising that is why I said it includes licensing also, and franchising is one of the very good ways to go for rapid international expansion. So, that is why McDonald's could go for a very quick expansion worldwide. Its outlets are located in almost all parts of the world because it went for this format of franchising. Then the third kind of entry modes are investment entry modes. Now, investment entry modes, as I said, contractual entry modes do not involve the two partners pooling in resources. It is actually one partner who is paying fees to the other partner for using its name or its trademark or its business processes. But in investment entry modes, as the name suggests, both the partners will pool resources, they will share equity. So, here there is ownership of production units in the overseas market based on some form of equity investment or direct foreign investment. Now, there can be certain ways of investment entry modes. Now, for example, what happens, why will companies go for investment entry modes? One is that they want to really increase their stake in the business, right? And second thing is that there are many countries wherein the laws do not allow a foreign country to company to enter directly into a business, into that market. So, these companies, if they want to move into that particular country, they do not have a choice but to go on for certain types of relationships with the local companies. So, for example, Saudi Arabia does not allow any foreign company to do independent business. It has to align itself, this foreign company has to align itself with some local business partner. Similarly, many countries of the Middle East also follow these rules. So, that is how this type of international entry modes become very important. So, first is partnerships, joint ventures and strategic alliances. Now, we have discussed about these in the earlier types of strategies. Here only the thing is that one company will be domestic from that particular country and one will be from a foreign country. So, it is a contractual strategic partnership between two or more separate business entities to pursue a business opportunity together. Now, this is again a very common, much used mode. Now, for example, you must have heard of this company Cisco Systems. Cisco Systems, when it wanted to enter the Japanese market, it partnered with Fujitsu and it wanted to develop routers for the Japanese market. So, it partnered with Fujitsu, which is a Japanese company, and it went in for co-branding. It used its own name because this Cisco name had a international repute, it was known in the international market, and it wanted to utilize the credibility or the image which a local brand enjoyed in the mind of the Japanese customers. So, that is how they could enter the Japanese market successfully. Similarly, I told you about Walmart. It failed so many times, but finally after a decade, when it entered into a relationship with a very strong Mexican local partner, then it was able to sustain itself in the Mexican market. Similarly, in India, we have this company called ICICI Prudential Insurance Company. Now, this company is again, it is a joint venture between the ICICI Bank and the Prudential Corporation, which is a foreign company, right. So, because in India, in the insurance sector, you cannot operate directly, right, a foreign company cannot operate directly. So, this is another thing. Then again, this is again a joint venture, BrahMos. BrahMos, BRAHMOS, BrahMos. This is a joint venture between Indian Brahmaputra, right? It is an Indian river, so it is a joint venture between an Indian company, and MOS stands for Moscow, Russia. This company, it manufactures missiles, right? So these are how joint ventures work. Now the other example is independent subsidiaries and wholly owned subsidiaries. Now this is also very important, that a company establishes its subsidiaries in the foreign country, and this can be a wholly owned subsidiary wherein the parent company holds the entire 100% of the stock or the equity of that company subsidiary, and a regular subsidiary is where the parent company has from 51% to 99%, which is owned by the foreign company or the parent company. So, many companies have subsidiaries, like for example, Amazon has so many subsidiaries. You must have heard of, whenever you surf the net for a movie or a star cast of a movie or a television series or a web series, you must have come across this site, IMDb. So, this is a subsidiary of Amazon. Then you must have heard about Zappos. This is again online shoe retailer. This is also a subsidiary of Amazon. So as we know Amazon, generally we know it as an online retailer, but it is also into several other business by the way of its subsidiaries. And the last is born global firms. Born global firms are those firms, as the name suggests, which do not generally, companies will follow this route. They will start with exporting, then they will go for a licensing or a franchisee, or they may go for a joint venture strategic alliance, and that is how they move to the international market. But there are certain companies which from their inception or which from their start, they move to the international market directly. So it is also known as a global startup. It is a business organization that from inception seeks to derive significant competitive advantage from the use of resources and the sales of output in multiple countries. Now, a born global firm, in contrast to the traditional pattern of businesses that operate in the home country for many years and gradually evolve into international trade, born global firms begin with a borderless view of the world. They consider the entire world as one. So they do not believe in this, first in this country, then second in this country, and third in this country. They will consider the entire world as one market, borderless, and develop the strategies needed to expand abroad at or soon after the firm's founding. Soon after it is founded, within initial few years, it will move to the international market. It does not mean that this firm is created throughout the world. It is created in our country, and a born global firm is generally defined as a company which can achieve 25% or 1/4 of its revenue. In the first 3 years, 25% of its revenue comes from the international market, then it can be said to be a born global firm. And there are many examples of born global firm. Our Google, it started in America and now it is there throughout the world. Then Facebook, everyone must be using. Amazon, it is a born global firm. Skype, Airbnb, Uber, Spotify. These are all born global firms because very quickly they have skipped all steps. They have moved beyond their own country of origin to different parts of the world. So a little comparison between few international entry modes so that you realize the advantages and disadvantages of each. We have exporting, licensing and franchising, then we have partnering and strategic alliances, then we have acquisition, and then we have greenfield venture. What is a greenfield venture? When a company creates its wholly owned subsidiary, when a company creates its wholly owned subsidiary wherein entire equity belongs to the parent company, then it is also known as a greenfield venture, right. So, you can take a look at the advantages and disadvantages of each of them, and you can find out as a company that which advantages or which disadvantages suit or do not suit the company. So, I leave you with this, and I hope that you have understood the various modes of international entry. So, as you can see that exporting is fast entry, low risk, licensing is fast entry, low cost, low risk. Partnering and strategic alliances, there are shared costs reduced, investment needed, reduced risk, seen as a local entity, because you are piggy riding with a local partner. So, an acquisition, fast entry, known established operations, and greenfield ventures where there is a wholly owned subsidiary, gain local market knowledge, can be seen as insider who employs locals, maximum control, because everything, all equity is owned by the parent company, and you can take into consideration the disadvantages also. So, I hope international entry modes are clear to you, and thank you so much.